Hello. Today we're making a new version of the previously made video about my experiences with Stephen Eigenmann from CannaConnect, Minnesota, and Conger Meat Market. He's also affiliated with a few other things, but those aren't important right now. Right off the bat, Stephen has reached out for me previously to do some business and have me sponsor his events back in 2020 at the beginning of the year with one of my former businesses and even one of my newer businesses. Both times I chose to not do business with him because he didn't seem very professional and he didn't have a very good reputation. More recently, at the beginning of 2024, January 18th, Stephen reached out to me because he had told me he had seen my food review videos about his in-laws' local business, Conger Meat Market, in which is why he is saying Conger Meat Market needs my help. And I said, say less, they're already the only place I go for my beef. I no longer shop there, and I have zero interest in shopping there anymore. They mentioned they have a strategy that they're working on with the blogs and social media to increase Shopify sales. He wants to bump those sales up to 100K. The real red flag here is the lack of transparency, which I believe is manipulation. My mama always raised me that if it's dishonest, not the full truth, or you're letting someone believe the wrong thing, that is the same as dishonesty and lying and manipulation. He says I'm connected to the family, but he never says he's the fucking family's son-in-law. So he never mentions that any of this work I would help him with, he would directly benefit from in some shape or form eventually. So it really does change your perspective. One perspective is, oh, this is another marketer who is hired by the Conger Meat Market that needs my help. Not, this is the son-in-law, potential heir to the throne that's going to be able to double dip here by profiting off of me and then profit again off of his wife and in-laws' business. Excuse me. Anyways, since I really don't know the full truth of what's going on here, we start working together once again at the beginning of the year. We got a couple posts here documenting that. So we're just talking about some of the posts we share. Just as February now. I'm giving him some of my ideas, saying it's kind of a good thing that they're trying to push now just because of the state of the world we're in. And he talks about how they're bringing in a celebrity partner, which I have no clue if that was the truth or not. But that leads to a 30-minute meeting on Calendly with Stephen here. And he types up a plan and a proposal. And he wants me to design a sales catalog, which I actually did. 2 of them, mind you. Never got paid for that. So here's the document. Conger Meat Market sales sheet. Conger Meat sales list, which is based off of the restaurants I've reviewed on YouTube. Thank God I didn't post them all on YouTube yet, so I didn't just do all the work for them again. But another key thing here is in February, I'm asking him to let me know the date of an interview on his interview show, the Northern Lights podcast, which took months to actually work out and actually accomplish for some reason, which seemed just all the more suspicious to me. But as you can see, I'm nothing but cordial. Here is the document for the Conger Meats sales list. Now here's one of the other biggest red flags is in that 30-minute meeting we go over the sales and he asked me to give him 20% of my earnings. So right here, commission percentage to Steven, commission amount to Steven. This man would be doing nothing, but I would somehow be giving him 20% of what I'd earn for my work. I don't do that for anyone. I don't hire salesmen and make them split commission. It always ends poorly. But to be so bold as to do that to someone who already owns several profitable tax-paying businesses seems outright predatory. Some people have talked to me and said, well, just say no. You can always say no. I did say no. But these guys kept pushing for me to help them. And I still said, well, I will if I don't have to give anything to Steven. I could easily middleman some really simple agreements with some of my other clients that would sell this beef jerky, sell the beef patties, and sell the beef sticks. Not an issue. But why would I give 20% to Steven when I did all the work? Well, in that 30-minute meeting we had, which was a video chat, we can go over this. These are the messages I sent to various business owners that kind of give me mentorship and advice. And I said, the son-in-law reaches out to me, blah, blah, blah. This is where things get weird. The son-in-law wants me to agree to sign over to him 20% of any profit I make from my sales. His reasoning is because he thinks I should thank him for this opportunity. Around that time in the meeting, Steven just walked out of the meeting. He came back and I asked, where'd you go? And he said, when I get anxious, I have to pee. Which I just said, I'm sorry if I made you anxious. I really don't want to make him feel bad. I responded by saying I make more as a fashion designer and a photographer. He then said his reasoning is because he needs to learn how to do my sales because he has no sales experience. And this was about the time that Steven then interrupted the conversation to say that I'm really pissing him off. I then told Steven, I am sorry I am pissing you off. Like, what? So now he wants me to pay him to teach him? If that doesn't make sense to you, the listener right now, it's because normally you pay people to teach you. You don't have teachers pay their students. That's usually called a consulting fee when they want a skill and they're looking for you to teach them that skill, right? I told Steven I would tentatively agree pending me seeking advice from people I trust, such as the person I sent this to. But it felt like he must have lied to his in-laws about the nature of his experience, which just made me feel gross. The next thing that happened was Steve wanted to bill me for the marketing services I do for Conger Meat Market. And then Steve's company, that doesn't exist, I don't think he has any LLC, would bill the meat market. I told him that seemed inappropriate and makes me feel like he's trying to commit some form of fraud against his future in-laws. I also told him that my accountant would probably slap me upside the head because that would basically mean I'm doing like 1099 IC work when I literally run a corporation and other LLCs and would appreciate having my businesses paid directly for the services and deliverables that I work on. Anyways, I follow that up by saying my question is, what do I do here? Do I tell Steven I'll teach him for money and then turn down his proposal for the sales agreement? Do I tell Steve I'll teach him, and then should I make a sales agreement directly with the meat market? And then should I tell the father/in-laws about his future son-in-law's attempt at basically like double dipping or overcharging him for other people's work? I just am morally confused because I'd want to know if I was in that situation, but I'm afraid to involve myself in their personal affairs. Part of me just wants to walk away, but I'm afraid Steve might retaliate against me because of his place in the cannabis community here in Minnesota. I then apologize for the wall of text, but I say that I'm appreciative for your thoughts on this matter, as I feel like I am too young to have enough experience to know how to navigate this. Mind you, Steven is nearly 10 years older than I am. He is essentially a middle-aged man. Those previous texts are from another colleague that I skipped by, the green ones, that didn't want to be involved because he felt like I was using him even though I was the victim here. Casual reminder to the audience that if you talk shit about people behind their back, you need to be prepared to be held accountable for your words. Your words have weight. So if you go out of your way to involve yourself in a situation, you better damn well be prepared to own what you say. Okay? Don't say you feel used when you're not the victim. Does that make sense? I would hate to have to repeat myself because some of you are such fucking inbred idiots that you think you can freely talk shit about people behind their back, even if it's talking shit about Steven here. I don't dislike Steven. I really don't. I just dislike his actions. I'm a grown enough man to separate people's actions from who they are at their core. I really do not think Steven is a bad guy, but I really do not also like people who cause drama and talk about people and say things about them behind their back that they wouldn't also say to their face. But this person was kind enough to tell me that in their opinion, Steven was defaming me behind my back and was misrepresenting the agreements and conversations that we had with Steven's father-in-law as a way to potentially, possibly hurt me or my businesses. Steven has yet to confirm nor deny any of this, but the other involved people have differing opinions. So if I am being completely truthful and objective and unbiased, I don't know what to believe. And that in and of itself is the crux of the issue. There are several people in this cannabis industry in Minnesota that are just known for being nothing but drama. And two of them are involved in this matter, going at each other and essentially using me as the bastard stepchild who's trying to love both parents equally, but they keep trying to make me hate the other one. Does that make sense? Mommy wants me to hate daddy. Daddy wants me to hate mommy. I'm just trying to be a kid and vibe, bro. Right? Anyways, I still appreciate that person speaking out to me about the alleged defamation. I'm not going to name this person. I didn't name them last time either. As far as I am concerned, they're completely anonymous. But this text on April 2024 is from another businessman who also had an unfortunate run with Steven. And he said he had 20 plus messages of support with stories of people saying they've had similar interactions with Steven and that he was doing the right thing by speaking out. I didn't censor this as well as I should have, but hopefully that's not too bad. Anyways, this is just Steven hitting me up in March. As you can see up here, 5/30/2024, for t-shirts for his Garrison Hemp Fest tees and hoodies. He wanted to order 200 200 hoodies and 300 tees, which I've been in this industry for nearly a decade, and I was taught how to manage businesses and work in this industry by people who have been doing this for over 50 years. So I'd like to think I'm pretty well versed in this. The weirdness here is that Steve on June 10th responded to my email from June 4th, so it's been nearly a week, and he says, thanks for sending over the initial design last night. I sent him several designs, remade them after this email, and sent them again. And he's just so unprofessional that he says last night, so I went back and responded to the original email chain here. This was a whole separate email chain he tried to create, which makes no sense. And if you actually look at the designs he went with, I don't believe they were hemp, and goddamn were they fucking ugly. He followed no actual rule to design when making any of the merchandise, and frankly, I think he actually couldn't afford the 200 hoodies and 300 tees, and was just leading me on and wasting my time like he has throughout all of this, which I just find extremely professional. Moving on, I asked him if he could pay me for any of the previous work I had done. It took him 2 fucking days to respond. And then even then he says he needs more time to just say he's going to pay me. And once again, I'm still being overly nice. Everyone I've spoken to says I am too nice. And I told him I don't mind making basic revisions for free once they're paid for. This is Steven's father-in-law. And this is just to establish more background. On July, we are talking about more meat sales, and I'm going to be selling and not giving any commission to Steven. But the really important thing to note here is that Jeremy Johnson has his relative, I'll say, Jay, who's already doing these sales for them. And since Jay is a part owner of Conger Meat Market, he's kind of making money in that sense and not having to mark up the sales. Why is that important, you ask? Because they sent me and wanted me to go on an impossible task, which I think is something they should have known prior, because they had mentioned it, but also extremely dishonest and disingenuous when you realize that they wanted me to give Steven 20% of my profits. So if Jay's already going around our entire state of Minnesota selling their meat for them, what am I going to do? Who am I supposed to sell to, right? Think about it. I'm supposed to call all these businesses and be like, oh, you already spoke to Jay? Well, that renders anything I would tell you as useless, because I literally can't sell for the same price as he does because I'm not an owner. I have to put in my markup for my sales time in there. So think about that. The solution to that would be actually paying me a different way as like an hourly employee, so that you pay me out of the normal profits you make from all of the business you do, not forcing me to mark up the sales, causing me to be completely non-competitive in the actual industry itself when it comes for me to sell anything to anyone. It's literally a waste of everyone's time, especially mine. And I want to make it clear, anyone in that position has a right to be fucking furious. It is such a waste of fucking time. It is such an insult to someone's person, business, and just life to set them out on a task that you already have someone doing. But I continue that conversation, and I call out Jeremy and I said, Jeremy, word got back to me that Steve was apparently telling one of his colleagues something that was a little confusing to me. Yada, yada, yada. Defamation this, defamation that. I send him some screenshots of the original green text, and Jeremy ends up getting back to me saying he has no malicious intent. We're focusing on different things, blah, blah, blah. He's keeping it very professional. Jeremy and his wife, Darcy Johnson, were extremely professional to the point to I said, that's fine and completely understandable. I want you to succeed. I want you to retire. But I call them out and say there's a difference in how you're communicating that, because they said they can't afford to pay me because they're trying to sell the Conger Meat Market to a venture capitalist so that they can retire, and that any money they would pay me to do their marketing would come out of their retirement fund. So they want to hire me potentially after they sell the business and can play with that venture capitalist money. That makes perfect sense. But that is not what I heard that Steven was saying to his colleagues, which is why I feel like I have a right to be upset. So this is just me on July 19th messaging Steven back because Steven said he was going to mail me a check. Mind you, it's been a month now. It is August 18th as of me recording this video. I have not received any check at all. I told him that I could offer him better pricing with more notice and kind of call out the fact that he was so bad at planning all of this that I was going to have to rush everything. But I still say that I hope all is well with you, and I even mentioned that I would have sponsored his sauna event if he had given me more notice about it. Which I still think that sauna event was potentially based off of my experiences of owning a sauna in my home and using herb in the sauna. Who knows? I also used this time to message him and ask about the potential defamation. And I'm really nice about it. The person who told me this made it come across like it was malicious. But I figured you'd be able to tell me your side, or your intentions, or what the context was. July 19th. He red receipted me on July 20th, 7:29 a.m., and didn't respond well until after that, until I started digging around and asking what was going on. In the meantime, I asked even other people, have you had any weird experience with Steven Eigenmann? Of course, LOL, I figured a lot of people do. Steve finally responded July 25th. Look at that. Nearly a week later again. And he wants to meet me at Tori's on Sunday afternoon in Otana. I find that a fucking insult and a joke. Over a week later, I get that text. Let's make this clear. I spent half a damn year trying to work this out, trying to play nice with a man who I knew was faking their friendship with me to my face, while clearly only trying to manipulate me for personal profit. I gave him a chance to work with me on apparel and do some design work, and he didn't even pay me for over a month now. Now it's been multiple months. Not a cent has been received. No explanation, just being ghosted. Even before that, many months previously, I made other designs for Steven, and he never once made an attempt to pay me for that work either. For the entire half a year plus, I explained to Steven and his in-laws, Jeremy and Darcy Johnson, that I didn't like the proposed sales agreement and thought it was predatory to both Conger Meat Market and myself, and about several dozens of my business mentors and legal mentors agreed that that sales agreement was riddled with red flags and nothing but issues. But instead of blowing up their family situation, I just told them I'm not comfortable working with Steven regarding the meat market, and I told Steven in a respectful way that we should strictly work together in the cannabis space only. All three of these people constantly violated my wishes to have much needed lines drawn in the sand for how we would work together now and in the future. In fact, repeatedly, Steven would talk to me on the phone and acknowledge this and say, I know you didn't want to work with me, but I think we should do this, that, or the other thing. And it really rubbed me the wrong way. It was extremely unprofessional. Mama always said that when business gets muddy and things get confusing and weird, it's best to just end everything and go separate ways, because usually something is being done in an inappropriate and improper way. Not one of them was professional enough to even enter a legally binding contract with me. And trust me, I drafted up several of them with help from my law mentors and business mentors who have worked and helped manage several financially profitable multi-million-dollar international businesses and nonprofits, so on, so forth. So I knew the work I did was kosher, and I actually redid it repeatedly before even presenting them these agreements to make sure that they were fair and allowed everyone an easy out for when we wanted to terminate any workings that we were doing together. Their inability to professionally write down and have a signed agreement with me just shows me that they're all, in my opinion, con artists who manipulate people and like to do shady shit under the table. Now, I'm totally fine with handshake agreements if you have proven that you are a trustworthy person. But on numerous occasions, these fine folk have disrespected me. Here are some of the occasions, starting with offering me a predatory sales agreement. Steven telling me I owe him for the opportunity. The weird roundabout shady-ass way of billing Conger Meat Market for my services. Non-payment for the 5 milligram Capital artwork. Non-payment for the Amsterdam of the Midwest artwork. The alleged defamation. Non-payment for the Garrison Hemp Fest t-shirt and hoodie. Steven's defamation of his previous colleagues and bosses. And Steven being indisputably weird about the podcast, and then wasting my time in sourcing suppliers. And there's even more, but you know what? I don't have time for that. The whole point of re-recording this was to keep it short and sweet. Right now, all I can say is that I'm not interested in working with someone who doesn't treat everyone with an equal amount of respect, let alone someone who uses misogynistic verbiage to request a meeting. Maybe this isn't the right industry for this guy. Who knows? But this is me moving on. As a man, oh, look at that. So weird. I really do wonder what type of person would even want to work with Steven Eigenmann. Once again, Steven being a man who I personally believe stole the CannaConnect idea from others. Certainly, having a cannabis event isn't anything original. In fact, CannaConnect is already a taken domain, which is why he had to do CannaConnect MN. Hardy har. Steven also being the type of person to be braggadocious about his cannabis drink for Canna, that he readily admit was inspired by Four Loko, which he told me over the phone. It also appeared to me, personally speaking, that Steven borrows a lot of ideas from others without really transparently telling others how heavily inspired Steven was by these others' ideas or pre-existing events and drinks and whatever. Now, just a little tidbit here. I do want to make sure you understand, dear listener, that I'm trying to be very objective and unbiased. And I will readily admit that I love this cannabis camouflage, but I fucking doubt, in my mind, personally speaking, that Steven even made this. He probably paid or underpaid or probably stiffed some other guy who made this for him. But hey, that's just my 2 cents. Simply looking at the art, you can actually see that it's missing a lot of qualities and details that would indicate to me that it was made by someone who even knows two shits about pattern design. Overall, I am disgusted with Steven Eigenmann's behavior. I don't care that his events, as he has told me, are basically a front to sell his non-compliant products on the side. Everyone fucking does that. His words, not mine, by the way. What I do care about is the culture vulture attitude and constant disrespect, not even towards me, but just towards others and my friends in the industry. The constant lies are also just the cherry on top. I believe that he told his previous bosses that he didn't do mushrooms, but I have audio recordings of Steven just happily chatting along about eating mushrooms before he went to a comedy show. And it just leaves me to wonder, excuse me, why would someone lie about something so stupid? Why would he act differently towards different people? To me, that says multiple personality disorder or split personality or some other weird shit like that. Pretty common amongst marketers and politicians, people who always got a code switch to fit in and, market to people. But the thing that those guys all have in common is that they're not authentic people. They're chameleons. They'll change up their entire personality to relate to who's in the room. But then the second someone else walks in, they'll be yet an entirely new person. And I know we all have run-ins and experiences with people like that. And they usually leave honest, authentic people feeling very gross. Because there's a lot of us out there that actually act the same no matter who we're around and who we're in front of. We can speak to our parents the same way we speak to a man on the street as we do to our boss, as we do to our spouse, whatever, because we aren't afraid of accountability, because we don't have weird deviant personality traits that we need to hide depending on who's in the room. If you can't live honestly and openly, you're the problem, not anyone else. Based on other first-hand accounts I was told, I also believe Steven treats vendors with blatant disrespect and even harasses them when Steven's been confronted politely about these issues. When I questioned him, Steven, about his previous dealings and why they went south, he said that they kept bringing me problems. But Steven ignored how all of those problems were his own actions that were putting people's jobs and the events he was a part of at legal risk by selling these non-compliant products behind everyone's backs. He then changed the subject to personally attacking these former bosses and colleagues in order for Steven to better play these childish games of he said, she said, or what about them type of behavior. I don't know a middle-aged man that does that. But apparently Steven Eigenmann is that type of guy. And I just find that fucking disgusting. You don't have to risk people's livelihoods to put your own personal profit ahead of other people's lives. I think that's gross. You need to do service to others above service to self. I think that's kind of like the motto of the Rotary Club. Fun fact. I don't think self-serving businessmen have a place in society. And if they do, it's somewhere far, far away from the rest of us. If you don't want to live and act like you're in a community, and benefit from the benefits of being in a community, and you just want to benefit yourself, then stop engaging with the community. Go buy some land and live in the mountains by yourself and stop hurting people. It's not that hard. Based on other first-hand accounts that I've been told, I believe that Stephen stiffed many previous people on payments, not just including myself. At what point does one go get a psychological evaluation? To me, it seems he embodies all three traits of the dark triad. In my opinion, Stephen seems to lack any sort of empathy and sense of right and wrong. His friendship and respect, if you can even call it that, towards people, I believe is a facade that gets dropped the second that Stephen finds that these people have lost usefulness. Below is an infographic about the dark triad: psychopathy, narcissism, Machiavellianism. If we start from the top and go clockwise, Stephen has displayed impulsive actions. He has come off as emotionally cold. He has shown remorselessness. You can kind of see this in his defamation of others and his treatment of even me with this predatory business agreement, and him saying he's pissed off because I wasn't signing away my ability to keep all my profits. That even ties into the sense of grandiosity, the perceived superiority to offer someone such a predatory agreement. Someone would have to be super entitled to even do that, right? Someone would also have to be super manipulative, entitled to risk other people's jobs to put their own personal profits above other people's livelihoods. Truly, that is some self-interested behavior. And then they say he's always pissed off and angry at everyone that stands up for him. Really screams that he is domineering. Yeah, I mean, it's all right there. Furthermore, if I didn't know any better, I'd almost think Stephen Eigenmann's in-laws, Jeremy and Darcy Johnson, encouraged Steve to befriend me for the sole purpose of me making Stephen passive income off of my work. Stephen, knowing full and well that I have many other things to do with my time, all to then waste my time, even though he's some silver spoon fuck up. You damn well know you're a piece of shit if you're gonna have me struggling to do sales when you guys have already got people doing your sales. You're literally making me do an impossible task, all to make Stephen money. Come on now. We all know, and you guys have even admitted this, that this is wrong. You told me that Jay was already doing your sales. You even defended Stephen's predatory sales agreement with me and said, well, it just seems like he's outsourcing his job. Okay, maybe he shouldn't accept the job if he can't do it himself. You know what they say, if you want the job done right, you gotta do it yourself. Why the fuck would I help some piece of shit make free money to thank him for this wonderful opportunity? No, that's not how the real world works. If he wants to make money from sales, Stephen should get off his lazy ass and go sell some shit. He has a marketing degree. If he can't sell shit, that sounds like the biggest waste of a degree to me. Stephen even knew that I've had to sue people and some previous business partners before for being predatory pieces of trash. So I kind of find it funny that Steven would put himself in a situation like this, where if he fucked up again, I believe I could sue the shit out of him and drag every single other asshole into the courtroom so that we're all forced to sort this out on a factual basis. Trust me, I will get to the bottom of who said what, when they said it, why they said it, how it was conveyed, and what all of your intentions were surrounding every little fucking facet of what was said. I've done it before, I'll do it again, and I bet my ass everyone would love to know of all the juicy things that I would discover about Steven in that discovery process. Everyone wants to victim blame me. Not everyone, like one person actually, for standing up for myself. But at the end of the day, we got to remember it was Steven's sociopathic inability to think about how his actions would affect everyone else around him. From his bosses, to his colleagues, to his in-laws, to his future business relations. I just find that hugely indicative of sociopathic behaviors. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you say shit about people, never assume it's not going to be spread around. It's almost fucking human nature to gossip. At least it is here in Minnesota. Minnesota nice on its face is really only meant for getting your neighbors out of the snow and keeping them safe. After that, everyone up here talks shit about everyone else behind their back, it seems like. And I really don't vibe with that part of this area. I don't like shit talking people behind their back. I'm not going to say anything behind someone's back that I wouldn't proudly say to their fucking face. It really does blow my mind that a middle-aged man with a Cadillac SUV, a girlfriend who basically pays for everything, and a marketing degree could be so much of a loser for everyone's viewing pleasure. I've attached the legal interpretations for worker misclassification in Minnesota. Now, I really wonder if a judge would say misleading me about my marketing, sales, and other work I did would fall under the definition of misrepresentation of an employment relationship. Very curious indeed. I'm left wondering when the last time Steven genuinely did a nice thing for someone without expecting anything in return. Based on all of the reports, I believe Steven has a mile-long track record of offering people, quote, opportunities, unquote, like he did with me through Conger Meat Market and Clean Green Media and CannaConnect MN, just to hold it over my head while he expected some form of kickback for his help. Buddy, all you did was bring drama into my life and many, many others. Even if it's at the expense of Steven's own in-laws. It seems to me that Steven will do anything to get ahead at the cost of others. That's pretty fucking wild for me, and screams entitled asshole. I believe Steven told me over the phone that he outsourced all of the work his in-laws hired him for at the Conger Meat Market, and then he billed them for the work other people did on top of his own time. And I've got to ask, who the fuck does that to your family? That just seems so gross. And if your family was okay with it, once again, back to one of the very first messages of saying you have a relationship with the family and the business, why wouldn't you just openly tell me that? I wouldn't give a shit if you were just like, yeah, I just want to make some money off my in-laws. They got too much. Let's get this bread. Yeah, if you just were open about that, who cares? If they were cool with it, then just say that. That way I wouldn't have any other way to think about this. But none of you actually clearly communicated that. Which leads me to believe that none of you guys were even transparent with each other about the nature of your own work with each other. So why involve other people? I don't want to be involved in your psycho family. And your psycho family drama. Anyway, setting that aside, doesn't this basically make Steven a contractor, not an entrepreneur, as he so wishes people would call him? He might as well be an insurance agent with how much of a tool he is. And I say that because insurance agents really do nothing entrepreneurial. They aren't paying people's wages. They aren't creating anything. They don't own any means of production. All they do is have a job that exists solely because the government deems it so. If you didn't have to have house insurance and health insurance and car insurance, insurance agents and brokers wouldn't be a thing, especially now that we have the internet and we can just directly cut out these insurance agents. You don't need cannabis events or event runners at all. And you definitely don't need people like Steven Eigenmann, who are clearly in this for all the wrong reasons. At least I think so. The real crazy thing is that Steven doesn't even realize there are many, many, many businesses and brand owners in Minnesota who all hate each other and will never do business with each other. But they, funnily enough, all have one thing in common. And that one thing is hating Steven Eigenmann. I believe everyone just deals with Steven because he is a tool that makes himself readily available to use. That's it. I don't know anyone who actually defends the guy. In fact, no one has. I could not imagine why anyone else on this goddamn planet would put up with the level of blatant disrespect and unequal treatment that I have received from Steven Eigenmann if they were in my shoes. Seriously, before you fucking DM me after watching this, put yourself in my position and ask yourself how you'd react. It took Steven a goddamn week to respond to my last text. He never even apologized. He just asked to meet. And even now, weeks later, no updates have occurred. Excuse me, I have a really bad cough. I'm recovering from being sick these last few days. What stands out about all of this is that I asked loads of people if Steven ever made up with them or tried to make amends with them, and they all said no. This leads me to believe that the only reason Steven wants to talk to me is for self-serving purposes and not because he actually gives a fuck about me or our relationship as individuals, but solely about our relationship as people operating in the same space. If even that. clearly. If Stephen genuinely cared, he'd have made amends with everyone before me as well, right? Only 3 of the involved parties ever reached out to offer any aid to me or clear things up. And mind you, one person reached out because they just didn't want their own name involved. The other person reached out because they felt that it was just rude of me to use their text. And the other person reached out because they just didn't want the spot to be blown up by outing Steven for the fraud that I believe he is. None of these people actually reached out on behalf of Steven. They only ever reached out to protect themselves. And even the people that still go to Steven's events that don't like him, they don't go to support him. They tell me they go because they support the ideology behind it, and they just like meeting other people. They still don't trust Mr. Eigenmann. I think all of this just shows how selfish and childish everyone is. It's also worth noting that after I sent my initial text to Steven trying to ask for clarification surrounding the defamation that Steven added me on Facebook, that furthers my belief that Steven knows that I caught him red-handed for trying to negatively impact my life personally and my businesses professionally. I genuinely would have been ready to forgive and forget if Steven just simply admitted to being inexperienced. But doubling down on this behavior isn't forgivable and surely will not be forgotten anytime soon. Now, I totally understand that people don't always know how they come across, but predatory agreements and non-payment for work done by a man who's nearly a decade older than me and has a marketing major degree is pretty clear-cut. You should know better. You have parents that are professionals, you have in-laws that are professionals, and you've been doing business with how many other people for how many years? You should know better. The reality is that it takes 5 goddamn minutes to be fucking accountable. Not a month of non-payment and another month of ignoring my questions. A simple, "My bad, bro. I had a lapse in judgment," or "I'm sorry, I was misguided and thought that was a fair deal." And I would have been over it. And even now, I am fairly over it, personally. But I do fear what'll happen if he hurts someone else. The ease at which he did all of this to me, repeatedly, leads me to believe that it's only a matter of time before someone else is hurt. In fact, from what I've heard, other people have already been hurt. Every one of you has a part to play in this. Even the people that don't like Steven and still go to his events. I cannot stress enough that none of this comes from a place of malice, but from a place of confusion and fear, and a deep love for my community. I do not know how people like this go about their daily lives. Anyone and everyone who can't be accountable for their words, I believe, needs to fail miserably in life. Anyone who talks shit behind people's backs, who then won't say the same things to someone's face, needs a catastrophic reality check. By the way, please notice how I didn't tell anyone to not do business with Steven, because simply put, I am not trying to defame or slander him. I literally just want to share my experiences and hold him accountable before he hurts someone else. And frankly, I figured everyone could shut the fuck up about this and appreciate that instead of involving everyone in a nasty lawsuit, if not several nasty lawsuits and maybe a restraining order, that this YouTube video would be sufficient. Because trust me, if we all went to court, I know none of you would have a good time. And the last thing all of you need while the license process is still going on with the OCM is to be wrapped up in more court bullshit, right, everybody? So none of you have any right to say that this video should not be made. And I swear to God, if a single one of you messages me to take this down or edit it again, I'm just going to expose all of you by name and all of your text messages and recorded conversations, because I like to live openly and honestly. But hey, that's the Gen Z part of me. I don't fuck with all these fake-ass hoes with elephants in the room. I like to sleep well at night knowing I got nothing to hide. So, feel free to do business with Steven Eigenmann and learn your own lessons the hard way. I know I'm surely not going to forget these experiences anytime soon. And if you ask the right people about Mr. Eigenmann, you will quickly find out about his real reputation. The problem is that we live in passive-aggressive Minnesota, where no one has a backbone and everyone's raised to hold their tongue. But as a person of color, I've learned one thing the hard way, and that is silence is violence. So please, unalive yourself if you don't speak out when you see injustice in front of you. Because guess what? If you see injustice and you stay silent, you have chosen the side of the predator. And at the end of the day, when we're all on our deathbeds, I can assure you one thing, good sir and good ma'am, is that you cannot gaslight our God, our creator, or whatever you believe in. Even if you are agnostic and atheist, science has shown that it's probably our own feelings and experiences that create our own perception of heaven when we die, or the afterlife, whatever you believe, with that one final burst of activity in our brains right before we die. So, in that millisecond when your soul's leaving your body and your brain makes it feel like you're living 1,000 years in some afterlife, do you want to be guilt-ridden, knowing you could have done better and done right and stuck up for justice? Or do you want to know you enabled Steven Eigenmann, the CannaConnect MN of Minnesota? Ask yourself. Thanks for watching. If you're a genuine person and you're inauthentic, just know I support the genuine people. But once again, if you are inauthentic, you're going to get curb stomped right into the ground. Trust me. A lot of you tiny-ass Minnesotan business people have no clue what is coming. A lot of you are going to be out of business. And I can tell you right now, knowing who to affiliate with and who not to affiliate with can mean all the difference. Good afternoon, Good evening and good night, everybody. Thanks for listening to my ramblings. And once again, I don't want to find a single one of you fucknuts in my DMs about this. Only 2 of you really went into my DMs last time, so I don't expect many, if any. But make it clear, I'm not the problem here. Your problem is with Mr. Eigenmann, not me, another one of his victims.